Good evening to the Makah community. This message is brought to you on behalf of the entire Makah Tribal Council. Today we have Makah Tribal Treasurer Patrick DePoe. He's going to give an update on some of the legislative issues that the tribe has been working on. Mr. Treasurer?
Hello, Makah community. We've been getting a lot of questions lately on the recently passed legislation, so we wanted to give a summary to our membership that basically lays out some of the direct impacts this could have on our Makah community. And so obviously there's a lot of things that it covers, but we've tried to narrow it down to things that are going to directly affect us. And so with that, the Tribal Council is closely tracking and working to access the funding, capacity, and supplies provided in the new coronavirus relief legislation. The legislation so far has been split into 3 phases. Phase 1, funding for testing, vaccine development, and telemedicine. Phase 2, nutrition and food security, expanded sick leave and unemployment, waiving costs to get tested for COVID-19, and public health funding. Phase 3 is direct payments, assistance for small businesses and corporations, additional public health and food security funding, and more than $10 billion for Indian country. The President has also declared a national emergency, which opens up $42 billion in FEMA funding for emergency response. He also exercised the Defense Production Act to require some large companies to start producing ventilators, PPE, and other needed medical equipment, an important step towards addressing shortages nationally. Governor Inslee is also working to address shortages here in Washington. Additional legislation already underway to fill gaps and address ongoing concerns. The Makah Tribal Council is in regular contact with Governor Inslee's staff regarding measures being implemented in Washington State, as well as with our Washington congressional delegation. Here's how a few of these laws may directly impact Makah. We've been getting a lot of questions on fisheries and the money that's been set aside. So with regards to fisheries, the legislation recognizes the important role that seafood industry plays in American food security. $300 million has been allocated for fishery disasters, including tribal, commercial, cultural, and subsistence harvest. The MTC is actively tracking this important issue and looking at ways to support our fishermen and our community that depends on them. We are in contact with NOAA headquarters to learn how we can access this funding. The Makah Tribal Council understands the impacts this is having on our fishing community currently. We've been off the water. We should be in the middle of our black cod, halibut season, winter troll, some drake, and it's becoming harder and harder to practice social distancing, knowing how contagious this virus is. And so, because we're off the water right now, we wanted the membership to understand we're doing everything we can to find ways to provide some kind of relief to our fishermen. And you know, we ask for your patience and understanding through this process, and we're going to be doing everything we can to get something as soon as we can. You know, with that said, there's been a coho disaster that's been pending for going on close to a year now. And so we've just seen a letter that from Senator Cantwell and others that have requested that OMB, where the money is at right now, disperse the funding from the outstanding 2016 coho fishery disaster out to our tribal fishermen as quickly as possible. The MTC is working closely on this and pushing for immediate action. In regards to that, we haven't got a final date on when we could see that money, but our ASD is all set up and ready to go, and we, as soon as we see those funds, we'll be ready to cut checks out to our fishermen and provide that relief. We'll keep our membership up to date on how that unfolds. With regards to individuals, recent legislation is aimed to support individuals and families who are affected by the virus and or by the closures and job loss associated with COVID-19. There's direct payments for individuals who make less than $75,000 per year can expect to receive a one-time tax credit payment of $1,200, with additional payments of $500 per child to families. We've also just recently found on the IRS, through the IRS, that there could be a potential for our fishermen to be eligible for this, even though they don't file for taxes. There could be a potential for our artisans, our some of our shake bolters, our guys that don't normally file for tax at the end of the year. And so those guidelines haven't been made completely clear yet, but we're following that, we're tracking that, and we'll get that information out as soon as possible so our membership can be ready to apply for that money. With regards to sick leave and unemployment, employers are required to provide paid sick leave to employees who are sick with COVID-19 or caring for someone who is. The legislation also makes it easier to access unemployment, including for people who were previously ineligible, self-employed people. And that's another thing that we're also looking into, is how we could possibly access that money for, once again, those ones that don't normally file for taxes, our fishermen, our local artists, or some of our local businesses that don't need a business license, but that are severely impacted because the tourism is non-existent in Neah Bay right now. And so, once again, we're waiting for those guidelines to become clear. It could be something as simple as filling out a 1040 easy form, but we haven't got 100% clarity on how that's going to work yet, but we're following it, we're tracking it, and we'll make that information available as soon as we know. With regards to COVID testing and insurance, your health insurance, including Medicare, Medicaid, IHS, or the VA, will pay for COVID-19 testing. Insurers are not required to pay for the treatment. Public health and research. The legislation provides significant funding for national public health efforts to adequately respond to and to mitigate COVID-19, including vaccines, research, and equipment stockpiles. Indian Health Service funding. IHS has received over $1 billion to support COVID-19 response. The MTC is working to ensure that we receive funding locally. CDC funding to the tribe. The CDC is providing grants directly to the tribe for COVID-19 response. MTC has already directed staff to develop an application. CDC plans to award within 10 days of successful applications, so the funding should be available quickly. Rural broadband. USDA received new funding to support rural broadband for telemedicine and teleworking. We are awaiting information on how this funding will be distributed. Tribal governments and state and local governments. $8 billion has been dedicated to assist tribal governments for COVID-19 response and impacts. The MTC is engaged in the emergency consultation with BIA to ensure that the Makah tribe receives as much funding as possible. With regards to small businesses, significant funding is allocated to support small businesses through loans and grants. There's a Paycheck Protection Program, provides forgivable loans to small businesses, including tribal businesses, to maintain employees on payroll during COVID-19 shutdowns. The MTC is looking into opportunities to support tribal businesses. Small Business Administration. Additional funding for small businesses is available through low-interest economic industry disaster loans, including quickly dispersed emergency loans. We're also checking to see the possible availability for the Small Business Administration loans with regards to our fishermen currently. Everybody knows that a boat is your business, and we're feeling the impacts by not being able to execute fisheries. And so as this becomes more clear, we'll get that information out and make sure it's available. I guess it's good to note that we are identifying a person in the tribal organization that will be able to work directly with people on filling out these Small Business Administration loans and these Paycheck Protection programs. And so we'll be able to post that soon and get that person number and contact information to be available so people can reach out and start these application processes. With regards to nutrition and food security, shutdowns, job loss, and school closures affect the food security of families across the country. Primary focus at the federal and state level has been on expanding funding for and ensuring access to supplemental nutrition programs. supplemental nutrition programs like WIC, SNAP, free reduced school lunch programs, and other supplemental nutrition programs have all received additional funding and flexibility. Most include specific set-asides for Indian country, which is one of the reasons we are still able to provide our lunches from school. We've also been able to provide our breakfasts for the child care. I think another good thing to note is with regards to our fisheries is the application for the disaster has not been made available yet. We are putting our numbers together and we're ready. As soon as that application is available, we'll be able to get it filled out, turn around and sent back. And I understand this is a trying time for a lot of us, and we're feeling the impacts. And I hope that our membership is patient and understands that we're trying to do everything we can to provide some relief to our community. You know, I'm sure that some of us have already felt some of the relief that the Tribal Council has been able to provide through our rent forgiveness and you know, and trying to keep as many people as we can, the organization as it is, still receiving their paychecks. We're trying to find other ways to mitigate and find relief for this pain, and we hope that we just urge that you bear with us through this time. Another thing is I'd like to thank our membership for and share our appreciation for understanding, you know, and doing well when it comes to our shelter in place. And so this is something obviously that is for the health and well-being of our community, and we appreciate the community understanding those rules and for the most part, you know, doing well by them. With that said, we'll keep the membership up to date. There's a lot of information available on our STIC website. There's phone numbers and emails for questions that the membership might have for tribal councils on our portal. Please feel free to reach out and contact me if there's anything that I might be able to shed more light on, as well as our other council members are available. With that said, I appreciate the time, and if there's anything else, Chairman.
Treasurer DePoe, I just want to thank you for your efforts in taking care of the tribe's finances, your strong advocacy for our fishing community and making sure that they're represented in the legislations that are moving forward, and also that you know, some of the work that's not getting put aside, the quotas that are upcoming for salmon and those issues, that you're tending to those as well. So thank you for all the work for the community and putting in the extra time. Sure.